Hello everyone, welcome to session 1 of module 5, Test Organization and Independence. So in this whole module, let's discuss what we'll cover in test management module. We'll first cover test organization, in which we'll discuss how to organize testers and the testing. Then second session will be test planning and estimation. We'll discuss how to do test estimation, planning and strategy for test effort. Then third session will be test progress monitoring and control. We'll discuss about addressing the test progress reporting and control. Then configuration management, wherein we'll see relationship of configuration management with testing. Then risks and testing, which will cover how testing is affected by product and project risks. Finally, incident management, where we'll see how defect management and other incident management are done and which require further investigation. So let's get started with the first session of module 5, which is test organization and independence. So test organization is about organizing the test team and the testing in the project or in your organization. So independence is not a condition. So test organization depends. It will be either highly independent or it will be least independent. So there, independence has a very important kind of role in organizing your test effort or testing for the project. So we'll get a fair bit of idea about independence and why independence is important while you are organizing your testing effort. So independence is not a condition, it's a continuum. At one end of continuum lies no independence, where developers themselves perform testing. So in test organization, there can be least independence, wherein developers themselves do the testing. So, and then there will be highest level of independence, wherein you outsource the testing to some other organization. So independence has very important kind of place while you are doing test organization. So as you move towards independence, a group of testers work alongside with developers and report to development manager. That's another level of independence, or test organization, different level of test organization with different level of independence. You move upwards when there is a group of testers, but that group of testers still under development manager. So they work alongside with developers and they report to development manager. Then another team of testers can be more independent and outside the development team, which reports to project manager. So that is another level of independence, wherein there is a project manager at top, then there is development manager and test manager, or there is just a project manager and a bunch of developers and testers working below that project manager, and those testers report to project managers directly. So that's another level of independence. Or it can be, for example, a project manager and then a test manager and development manager. Test manager manages the test team and development manager manages the development team. So testers report to test manager, and then test manager reports to project manager. So that's another level of independence in test organization. Near the end of continuum lies complete independence, wherein test team reports to a point equal to development team. So there will be a complete independence when there is a team which has completely different set of people. So for example, test manager and then test director. So a test team reports completely different in the continuum, or they report to the point equal to the development team. So independent test team typically comprises of test manager, test lead, and testers, and brings great value to testing. So let's see what are the different levels of test independence. So the least independence is when developers are doing testing themselves. So in the team, developers are developing the software and they are doing testing on their own. So that's the least independence in test organization. Then testers working alongside with developers and reporting to development manager. So that brings a bit of more independence to testing, wherein testers work alongside with developers, but they report to development manager. Then test team outside the development team and reporting to project manager. So in this case, there is a project manager and test team is completely outside of the development team, and the test team reports to project manager. And then test team with specialist testers like business domain, database, performance tester, automation testers. So these specialist skill tester are more independent in terms of reporting and reporting their results, or reporting manager. So they are more independent in the test organization. And then test teams from an external organization. So if you outsource your testing effort to external organization, that's the highest level of independence you can get. And the more the test independence is, more benefit it brings to the project, because more independent testers are able to convey their results or issues or defects in a neutral way, and they get addressed more effectively. So what are the advantages of test independence? So it is seen that if you are reviewing your own work, it's difficult to find defects in your own work. So that's a human psychology. If you have built something, you think in a constructive way, you look it in a constructive way, but the testers look at the software in positive pessimism way. So they if they doubt something, they'll question it. But if you have developed something, it's difficult to find defects in your own work. So person other than developer will be able to find more defects. Independent tester brings a skeptical attitude of professional pessimism. If the doubt there is doubt in system behavior or software behavior, then they'll ask a question whether it is a defect. So because of that, they are able to report more issues and defects in the software. Independent testers provide unbiased view on the software issues and so find more defect. So they provide unbiased view and they are able to find more defects in the software. And independent testing is very important for testing complex and safety critical applications. So for safety critical and complex applications, you cannot have a development team doing the testing of their own work, because the safety critical and complex testing applications need more rigorous testing, and independent testing is the best testing organized to do testing of complex applications. So what are the disadvantages of test independence? Testers and test team could be isolated from the developers, designers, and project team. That's the very basic kind of disadvantage, because development team and test team are completely separate entities, separate teams. So they might be isolated if there is not good team spirit and good communication between the teams, then they might be isolated. the more the test independence is, the more the isolation is. Then leads to communication problem, feeling of alienation and antipathy. So it might lead to communication problem and feeling of antipathy as well. Then blame games and political backstabbing can start. So in case of independence, the blame games, if the team spirit or the team is not kind of organized well, then blame games might start that this is your defect, this is defect in your module. So we have already learned how you should develop a relationship with the developers and the team in the previous sessions. So you should, whenever you are working as a tester, you should always report the issues in most neutral format, and there should be no personal comments in defects or any sort of comment that you make in the organization. So because of that, if you start going personal into the developer's defects or his work, then blame games or political backstabbing things can start in case of test independence. Then due to independence, developers may lose the sense of responsibility for quality. So because of independence, developers might think, yes, we'll just code something and it's testers' responsibility to find those issues. So they might lose the sense of responsibility for quality of the product that they are developing. So these are some of the disadvantages of having test independence in test organization. Now, what are the roles that you need to perform if you're working as a test leader? So tasks performed by test lead are, so test lead is mostly involved in planning, monitoring, and controlling of testing activities. So whenever testing starts, he has to write the master test plan, individual test plan for specific phases of testing. So he is the person who decides, who writes all the plan and then monitors the testing activities as they are progressing, and then if there is any issues with the testing activities, then he does the control of testing activities as well. Then he formulates test strategy, test plan as well in collaboration with stakeholders. So he's the person who is always in discussion with all the stakeholders. Then he formulates the test strategy and plan what he feels like how the test execution for a specific phase will happen, what the plan will be, what are the time frames, what are the hardware and software requirements. So all these things need to be planned and finalized by test leader. Then he estimates the testing required for the project and he negotiates the resources for that project with management as well. So what amount of testing is required for the project, and then negotiating the resources with management. And he is the main person who leads, guides, and monitors the analysis, design, implementation, and execution of the test cases and test suites. So whenever testers are preparing the test cases, so he's the person who is responsible for reviewing those test cases, analyzing those test cases, and if some tester has issues with test designing, then he guides them, he mentors them, and finally he guides in the implementation of test suites and the execution as well. Then he schedules the test execution and monitors the test execution progress and reporting. So on day-to-day basis, he monitors what the progress has been made with the test execution, and he schedules the test execution for the phase as well. Then during test execution, test lead makes sure that test environment is in place and continuously managed during execution. So that's another major responsibility, that to make sure that test environment is ready before test execution will commence, and He also makes sure that test environment is working fine and continuously managed during execution. There is no blockers in the test execution because of any issues in the test environment. Then they also adapt test planning based on test results and progress, and take control measures in case of any issues. Then some more responsibilities of test leader are: he ensures proper tests were produced and traceability of test cases with test basis. So that's another responsibility. Whatever test cases are being produced by the testers in the team, he makes sure that those test cases are traceable back to the requirements or the test basis. And proper testware is being produced and delivered. Whatever has been committed to the project stakeholders, whatever deliverables have been committed, those are produced properly and delivered to the stakeholders. Then test lead introduces suitable matrix for measuring progress and evaluating the quality of testing. And he also introduces suitable matrices for measuring the progress and for measuring the quality of testing that has been done. Then he recognizes when the automation is appropriate to start. So if he feels that phase 1 of the release has been done and there will be need for regression testing in the next phase, so he decides when to start the automation, so that there is less manual effort required for repetitive tasks. And if automation needs to be done, he evaluates different automation tools, organizes any training effort, and organizes a team who will be doing the automation if any training is required for that team. So all this is done by test lead. And he also decides about implementation of automation test environment. He is the main person who decides what test environment, automation test environment will be like, and any hardware and software resources required for that are being done by test leaders. Then prepare test status and summary report. So he's the kind of person who does the estimation, planning, monitors and controls the execution, and then finally he prepares test status and summary reports and makes sure that all testware that was being committed to be delivered to project stakeholders has been delivered. So he's the whole end-to-end responsible person for doing all the test execution and monitoring activities. Now, if you're working as a tester, what are your tasks of a tester? So testers review and contribute to test planning during test planning and preparation phases. Whenever test lead is doing an estimation for test planning, then he does meetings with testers to get an idea about the time required for testing certain modules, so that he can put it into the test plan. So testers, if you're working as a tester, you contribute to test planning during test planning and preparation phases. So your contribution is required there. Then you analyze, review and assess software requirement specification and design documents. Since you are the person who will be writing test cases from the requirement or use cases or any specifications in the project, so you need to analyze and review any requirement or design document, so that you can start with writing the test cases. Then you identify test conditions, create test cases, test data, and may also automate test cases. So after analyzing your software requirement and design document, you identify the test conditions and write test cases. It's your responsibility to set up a test environment or help system admin to prepare test environment. So testers also set up test environment. The actual setup of test environment is done by testers. If it is a complex test environment setup, then testers guide or take help of system admin to get that test environment set up. Then testers execute and log test. So after you have written your test cases, prepared the test environment, once the test execution phase starts, it's your responsibility to execute the test cases and log the test results. Then after logging the test results, you evaluate the results and document any test failures. And then testers use defect management, test monitoring tools as required. So it's responsibility of the testers to use defect management tool to log the defects, test management tool to enter your test cases into test management tool, and so testers use different tools whenever they are required. Then testers log defect in test management tool for any failures during test execution. Then testers also measure performance of component or system if required. So if testers also do performance testing if it is required. Mostly it is done by independent performance test team, but if it is a simple thing that can be done by testers, they also do that. Then testers do peer review of test cases, any defect reports or test results developed by other testers. So these are some of the responsibilities that you need to perform if you are going to work as a tester in an organization. Then what are the skills needed by testers? So good test team should have a right mix of skills based on the tasks and activities they need to perform. So it is very important that good test team should have a right mix of skills and based on tasks and activities they need to perform. Because if you do not have right skills and expertise, then you won't be able to do the right testing that is required for the project. So ability to prepare and deliver written verbal reports, very, very important skill. If you want to work as a tester or if you're working as a tester, you need to always improve on your ability to prepare written or any verbal reports or communication. This is very important because your report should be neutral, should be clear, concise, to the point, and they shouldn't be able to anybody who is reading your report should be able to understand quickly. So ability to communicate effectively, that's another very important skill, because if you're not able to communicate properly, communicate effectively with the developer about any issues that you have found, they won't be able to figure out or find they won't be able to reproduce the issues that you are trying to communicate to them. So that's another very important skill needed by testers. Then application or business domain. So if you're working in specific, suppose you are working in banking or superannuation domain, you need to have a good understanding of the application or the domain that you are working in, so that it will help you in testing the applications for that domain. So testers should understand the intended behavior of the application. Suppose you are working in banking domain, banking application will have some basic kind of behaviors that you will be able to figure out quickly if you have already some sort of experience in banking domain. So you should be able to understand the intended behavior, the problem that the software will solve, and the process it will automate. So if you have business domain expertise or application expertise, you will be able to figure out what the problem that software will be able to solve. Then above business domain understanding helps testers to figure out any incorrect behavior in software. So if you have good domain expertise and you have already experience in prior in some previous similar kind of applications, you will be able to figure out if the operation performed by the software is incorrect or the behavior is incorrect. So that's where business domain or application skills are needed by testers. Then technology is another very important skill for the testers. So testers must be aware of issues, limitations, and capabilities of chosen technology. So if you have chosen certain technology, you should be able to find what you should be able to know what issues can be there. So suppose the platform is Linux, you should be aware of the limitations of Linux platform, or capabilities that a Linux OS can serve as a chosen technology. What are the issues? What are the known issues in Linux version that you're working right now? So these kind of issues, you need to, this kind of technology expertise you need to have as a skill. Then technical understanding helps testers to figure out any problems with the system. Then you need testing skills, should have good understanding of testing concepts discussed in this course. So whatever concepts we are discussing in ISTQB Foundation Level syllabus are very, very important concepts that you should be aware of if you want to get into testing career. So this is kind of basic to start with as a career as a tester. So you should have very good understanding of all the concepts that we have discussed in this whole training module. So to conclude, in this session we have learned about different levels of test independence and how test independence can be very helpful if you are testing any application, how it is more effective rather than having no independence in testing. Then why independent testing is important, we learned about that. And what are the advantages and disadvantages of independent testing. Then what are the tasks that need to be performed by testers and test leads, and the skills needed by testers and test leads. Thank you.